Alright, hey everybody, Ace Maven here. Another Vox Machinae video. Today I'm just going to do a quick run through of each of the grinders so that you get a flavor for what each one of them does. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the different weapons and everything, or the loadouts that you can do. You can play around with those, check out my startup video, check out some of the other videos for, you know, how to change your weapon loads and everything like that. I'm just going to go around the board and talk a little bit about each one of these in case you're just getting started and you want a little idea of what they can each do. So I'll start out with the Gold Rush, and we're just going to go ahead and jump into an offline game here. So no other players, this is just me. So a couple things about each grinder that I'll talk about. One is the radar range, 2 is fuel, 3 is heat, and then some of their special abilities, okay? So each grinder has a different radar range. Typically the smaller, it's not exactly true, but the smaller the grinder, the longer the range. Kind of like, you know, so they can act like scouts. So Hopper has like a pretty wide radius here. Gold Rush is pretty good, it's pretty like medium. Something like a Dredge will have like a very small radius. You'll still see your team are the blue circles. If they're empty, they're bots. If they're filled like I am, that means they are people, real people. So even though like I'm on the blue team, but if I were on the red team, the red dots are still the bad guys. So red is bad, blue is good on your radar, okay? So each grinder will have a different radar range. And then fuel, they will have a certain tank capacity and a recharge rate, okay? So for example, the Gold Rush has an okay fuel capacity. It's again about medium relative to the other grinders, but its recharge rate is pretty slow. It's not the slowest, but it's pretty slow. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're burning all your fuel getting into somewhere, it's going to take a while to build up again in case you need to get out. Okay, I don't want to get shot at too much here. So there, I burned some fuel there, and then it recharges. You see, so I'm going to jump over to here, use about half my tank to get over, and then there it is recharging. Okay, so you're sitting here like recharge. Okay, it takes a little while. Similarly for cooldown. So I'm just going to shoot all my weapons here, let the heat build up a bit, and I shoot my team. And then I let go, that'll cool down. So that's different on each of the grinders, okay? And of course, like you've seen from my large weapon overview, different weapons will have different heats. So check out the large weapon overview for that. And so that I love watching those shells go. As long as they're going by and not hitting me, I love that. All right. So another thing though for the Gold Rush is, of course, how much it loves to ram. Alright, that was actually a pretty good one. It did a lot of damage on that short range, and I was able to finish him off with just one hit. But now look at you can ram pretty close. Check it out. Did I knock off his arm? Yeah, his arm's gone. Okay, so even at pretty short ranges, you're not building up that much speed, but you can get some pretty good rams and do some damage. So don't neglect that. Forgot what team I was on. Don't neglect your. You got to use your ramming ability. You see that big count? That guy's count catcher's all blowed up. But you got to use the mechs for what they can do. Okay. Now I've got nice full. It's harder to ram downhill, but we're gonna give it a shot. Let's see. Whoop. Now when I kind of blew my leg off. So you are going to, you get impact damage on yourself. We're going to just go one more time for sort of a longer range ram. But if you can start to, get the feel of how to hit, how fast to go and stuff, you can do some pretty good damage in Gold Rush ramming. So keep that in mind. That's sort of the trick of the Gold Rush. Now here's a Dredge, which is they are sturdy little buggers. So we got him. What did we do? Alright, we blew an arm off. That's pretty good. I actually like to aim for the arms, but you see now my fuel is really low for that. Okay. Let's see what I did there. Oh, I blew off the other arm. So even with those rams at short range, you know, you can be a nuisance even against dredges. Dredges are impact resistant. So be careful if you're ramming a dredge and you're like, why aren't I doing any damage? It's because dredges are impact resistant, okay? Go ram something else. What I actually like to do for dredges if I'm ramming them, if they are damaged, if they're damaged, you know, I'll go ahead and ram them center mass in the torso and hopefully they'll explode. But if they're not, you can be going pretty fast and almost feel like you bounce off of them. And that's no fun. So sometimes if they're still pretty healthy, I'll actually aim for an arm or their legs if they're sort of mid-air, and I'll try to knock off arms or legs. But that's a gold rush. Okay, let's hop over to the hopper. This is another pretty light mech. The hopper has a pretty fast recharge rate, decent fuel. It's pretty light too, so you see how fast that comes back. Remember in the gold rush that was kind of crawling. I mean here it goes up pretty fast, like noticeably pretty quick. Your fuel starts recharging. The hopper also has these two arms. Can I see them if I stick my head out my window, or is it just going to turn each time I turn? Here, you kind of get a glimpse of them on your peripheral vision. Oh, there they are. There, you see those arms right there on dot matrix? We're hoping someday those will actually flip out. That'd be awesome. But they're still actually very good for ramming. So the hopper has 3 small weapon mounts. Okay, so you have to learn how to, what works best for you. But I like to almost bunny hop in the hopper. So you saw for the now listen, that's my collision warning in terms of coming out too fast. You saw in the gold rush it was sort of more forward movements, right? Quick jets, kind of forward. With the hopper, you kind of want to hop. It's pretty good. Feather your jets a little. You can work your way across, kind of doing this kind of thing. You don't have to keep your hand on your jets the whole time. Coasting is your friend, walking is your friend. Jets are life. If you blow all your fuel all the time, you're pretty much going to be screwed. So hopper is good for these sort of like hoppy flights. Okay, get up in the air. You can do a sort of a milk run, do some damage. Make sure you know where you're going here. I've got those are good guys. I always forget what team I'm on. You can turn around in midair. Another thing about the hopper is, check this out. When you land, all right, you get a little spring in your step. Okay, now watch. I'm gonna land, and you'll feel yourself bounce a little. That was a bad example. Let me try to do a better one. You get a little bit of a spring, and you can actually use that. I might be coming down a little too forward, so let's let it land here. See, I'm not using any fuel right now. It's still in the air. But it's gonna land. And there's the bounce. Did you see that bounce? And then I hit my jets, and I just sort of use that momentum to do like another bounce. Okay, so here it's gonna land, and then you'll see it spring. I won't hit my jets this time. Down, up. You see that? So that little spring is you want to use that in your hopper. Okay, because you can be over here and you're shooting at enemies and you're causing carnage, but they're right behind you, right? And you're like, holy crap, I'm stuck here. You hit the ground, let it bounce up, and then use that momentum to make your next jump. Okay, so that's one thing about the hopper. Here's the other thing about the hopper. Hopper is a very effective rammer, believe it or not. Those elbows right there can do a buttload of damage. So they will follow where your reticle goes, where your crosshairs goes. Let me see if I can get a ram on somebody here. Try not to ram their shoulder. That's pretty much bad news. It's not going to work out too well. Let me get over here. stuck on somebody's head. Let me get over here. Alright. Okay. Gonna back up a little. This guy will probably start shooting at me. Yep. Oh, this guy's got daggers. That's why I don't overcharge. Alright, now let's find a suitable target. I want something I can line up with here. Alright. It'll follow your reticle. So wherever your reticle is aiming is where your. So I want to keep it trained on my target. That was another bad. They're all in this hole down here, so I'm not getting a great chance to kind of line up a good ram. So let me definitely do one before we sign off with the hopper. So when you ram, there's two ways to ram, okay? One is sort of head on, and again, keep your reticle trained on your target because your elbows will actually converge on your crosshairs, on your reticle. Another way to do it is to sort of change your position a little bit. You can either do it with your head, or you can do it manually with the joystick and have one elbow impact, one elbow basically impacting your target.
Your team was victorious.
Ran out of time. Wonderful, we were victorious. Is to have one elbow impact your target. Now that could be effective as well in different circumstances, so it's kind of one matter of preference as well as context in terms of where you are. So let's see if we can just get one ram in with the old hoppy, and then we'll move on to the next grinder. Zero launch. All right. Oh, you'll notice, sorry, like I mentioned, look at that radar range on the hopper. It's gigantic. So hopper has a really large radar range. All right, maybe we'll get something here. Heat dissipation's pretty good, you know. It's not bad. You're not really building up a ton of heat with the smaller weapons. Blam! You see how the elbows came together? They just love grinding on those grinders. So yeah, you can do it like that. I might blow up before I get reaches. And I'm also out of gas, but let's see what we can do. There, I took off his arm, you see. So even with that slow ram, the hopper arms are very effective in doing damage, so you know, use them to your advantage. Hopper on hopper action. Oops, right arm destroyed. So here's my left arm. Okay, I just blew off his leg, and who knows what else. There's my arm. But you know, I took off his leg just by nailing him with my left arm, and I sort of just turned my joystick a little bit to make sure my left arm was impacting correctly. So that's the hopper. It's good for hopping and for ramming with those nice elbows. All right, here's the dredge. So the dredge is basically the tank. Look at that circle, very small radar, but you're stacked. You're buffed. I mean, it walks very slowly. Its fuel recharge is pretty slow. It has a decent sized tank for what it is. Tank of gas. Heat dissipation. Let's check it out. Heat dissipation, you know, not super fast either. But you're really armored, and a lot of armor in the dredge. And then, you know, the jets, you got to really overcome your inertia here. But I mean, you can see, like, for example, in this particular loadout, I've got all these missiles and then a scatter shot. But you know, just missiles alone, I've got about 14 missiles. So I mean, a lot of folks when they play Dredge, I don't play Dredge too much, I'll admit. But you know, when they do, what they'll sometimes do is they'll just jump in here. Let's pretend that Rock is a bad guy. You know, they'll sort of just jump into the action, land, and then just completely, you know, unleash hell on their targets. So Dredge is kind of your tanky, you know, slightly slower, decreased radar range. So sometimes you can get, you know, gold rushes and stuff sneaking up on you. it has a pretty slow recharge rate, but you're not exactly always flying around. And you do stuff like that. You blow things up, get in the thick of the action, and you just unleash everything and you blow things up. Now, of course, unleashing everything can boost up your heat, but I mean, you can see it's pretty effective in terms of blowing things up. Right? So here I'm still only at about half tank, but and of course, I'm sure there are other ways of playing it. That's fun, actually. That's pretty satisfying. But that's the Dredge. All right, heavy armor, pretty slow. Not great refueling or cooling exactly, but heavy armor and lots of firepower. All right, Catalyst. Catalyst has a large weapon, a small weapon, and a fixed mount. So it's kind of versatile. It doesn't have a ton of armor, but it's not bad. A couple things that are good about the Catalyst, actually, it has great cooling, and its fuel recharge is decent, and it has a decent sized tank. So, it's a pretty good one for kind of getting around. Again, it's kind of versatile if you need a fixed mount, but you don't really want the heaviness of a Dredge. You have the Catalyst here. So it's pretty great in terms of those capacities. You're not ramming with it, you don't have a ton of armor, you don't really want to jump in between those two Dredges there and try to take them on. It'd probably be bad news. But it's pretty nimble, relatively for what it is. So you can move around, and you see, its recharge is not bad. And I've got 2 lasers here, so let's burn up a little heat. And that's pretty quick for heat dissipation. So you can kind of hold your own in a pretty good sense with this. I mean, a large laser, a small laser, and a fixed mount will do damage. And you can kind of and then say, now I'm in trouble, they're all after me, so now I kind of get out of dodge, right? Spin around so they hit different plates of armor. And I'm out, I'm landing, my heat is practically back to normal, my fuel's on its way up. By the time I, re-engage, I'm going to be, look at that, heat's gone, fuel's recharging. So Catalyst is a pretty good one in that respect. Good heat, good fuel. It's nice to have that fixed mount as well as a heavy mount going on. All right, Rook. Rook has 2 large weapon mounts on its hands. So not fixed mounts, but 2 large weapons, 2 large lasers, 2 cannons. You can switch them up. You can have a laser and a cannon. No missiles, obviously. Those are small weapons or fixed mounts. It has no fixed mount. So a couple things about the Rook. You'd actually be surprised how much damage 2 large weapons can do, because all the other grinders, they only have 1 large weapon mount, and they might have the fixed mount and small weapons. But when you actually get 2 large weapons on you, you're dealing some pretty hellacious damage. So it's something to definitely not to take lightly when you're on the receiving end of it. The Rook is built as a side strafer. Okay, so if you're trying to fly forward, look how kind of slow it is, right? Not very fast. Now, if you think of it more like surfing, though, it's actually got some of the fastest jets in the game for going sideways. You might want to land facing forward so that you don't, buckle your knees too much. But it is a side strafer, so now, and you've got these 2 cannons or whatever. I've got 2 cannons loaded out on this. Now that's a Dredge, so that's still going to take a heavy beating before doing anything. But you can kind of do damage. Watch out for that skyjacker. And then sort of, get out the way. Right? You can run into things like this and bounce off of them. Woohoo! So it's kind of fun. But really, that's kind of the Rook. I mean, the arms on a Rook are really heavily armored, like like heavy armor. They're almost like impossible to blow off. Not impossible, but they would take a lot of firepower to blow off. Heat dissipation, not awesome. So you can overheat in a Rook just because it has 2 large weapons. Doesn't mean they also gave it, you know, a lot of heat dissipation, because then you just totally OP. Fuel recharge is like not horrible, but not great either. Determined to blow up that drill. So, you know, fuel is not great, so be careful if you fly into a situation. Make sure you can, you know, have the fuel you need to do what you need to do. So that's a Rook. You do have these bars here that impede your vision. So on a world like Serpent Plains, it's not as big of a deal, but if you're playing like Arid Oasis, multi-levels, or Cryptic Tundra maybe, those definitely can be, you know, an issue. Part of the reasoning, my understanding from discussions on the Discord, are that these are actually in place so that the Rook is not completely overpowered. So if there's some, you know, you're just shooting your large weapons all over the darn place, that can be a little extreme. So it's a little bit of a nerf for the Rook, but it has all these other advantages, and, you know, like anything, you know, pros and cons. So again, Rook, fuel capacity, recharge, you know, nothing special. Same with heat. But you have those 2 big guns, and it is a side strafer, so you can move side to side like really quickly. And if you sort of learn the physics of bouncing off of things, you can definitely have some fun with that. So on to the drill. The drill is the lightest mech. We see a pretty large radar range, again, because it's, you know, one of the lighter ones. Excuse me. It has a top-mounted weapon, which is kind of nice because you can sort of shoot over rocks like that. If I were in the Gold Rush with the crotch mount and I'm aiming at something down there, I most likely would hit that pile of rocks. So the drill is pretty nice. It's very maneuverable. It's very quick and nimble. So, I mean, you can use just that if you want. You know, it has a really small gas tank. One of the hardest things, there are 2 hard things about the drill. One is managing that small gas tank, especially when you're used to the other grinders. Because it runs out fast, right? It runs out fast, but it also recharges very quickly, okay? So that's something that really takes a little getting used to, is the recharge. The other thing is the drill weapon itself. Now, I'm probably going to blow this. I don't know if I hit him at all. Let's see if I can land on that. The drill is one of the most powerful weapons in the game. There we go. Blew him up. I'm going to eject. The drill is one of the most powerful weapons in the game, but it definitely takes some getting used to. So you see, there's the drill on the drill. So it actually has a drill, and it is a weapon. You see here, I'll push my trigger, and you can kind of activate it a little bit. But if you hold it down, you're like going to town. You actually have jets on your top, so when you activate the drill, the jets blow upward and you go down. But you have to get right on top of your target, you know, so pretend the drill is like right under my butt. You know, there's not like a downward facing camera or anything like that. You have to be a certain height as you're kind of approaching your target. You've got this sort of small gas tank. So, you know, again, if it had like a huge gas tank and you just had all the time in the world to line up your shot, you know, it probably wouldn't be that. Somebody blew me up with their hammer. But you saw I had that one drill on the dredge. You can land on a healthy dredge just with your drill and blow them up by drilling them. I mean, it is a strong weapon. Okay, so it takes a lot of getting used to. Don't get frustrated, just keep practicing. I'm definitely no master at it. There are people who are, and I tell you, once you get the hang of it, you know, I've had my good days in the drill. Once you get the hang of it, you can do some serious damage. Because basically, as long as you land on it, you're gonna destroy them. You're gonna blow them up. All right, Overhaul, last one. So the special thing about the Overhaul is this hummingbird drive. Okay, right there. And I've got it mapped to my thumb button here, my Y button. So what this does, I'll just stop moving, stop walking. I'm going to hit my hummingbird, and you'll see that I'm lifting up, obviously. I'm not using my jets, okay? No fuel is used in the expenditure of the hummingbird. And I hover. You hover at a certain distance above the ground. And then, you know, you would use your jets, for example, to kind of move, and if you let go, you just let your inertia carry you. And if you hit like a contour in the, you see I'm sort of going up and down. If you hit a contour in the topography, you stay at kind of that distance above it. Okay, you see I got a little ramp there, and that was all just from that little jet of my jets, little shot of my jets. So if you know, I was at a dead standstill when I took off, but you can be walking, and if you use your jets and your hummingbird at the same time, you can get a pretty good launch. Okay, I mean, that's a pretty substantial, like, whoa, you know, and I just used a little bit of my jets. So the nice thing here is, you know, if you're coming down fast in like a hopper or something, you'll hear the beep 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 beep, that. But you see the hummingbird kind of protects you from heavy impacts if you have it on, obviously. It has a pretty good, you know, fuel recharge rate as well, but it's kind of meant to be this, you know, bit more of a support maybe. Although it could be a pretty heavy hitter if you get used to it. It has 2 fixed weapon mounts, so this is definitely different than any of the other ones. None of the other ones have 2 fixed weapon mounts. It doesn't have any, oh, that was brutal. Oh my god. It doesn't have any directional weapons. It doesn't have any directional weapons, so all of your weapons are these fixed mounts. There we go. I just finished that person off. Are these fixed mounts, and if you remember from my fixed mount video, the Overhaul, the fixed mounts are pretty far off to the side and up relative to you, to your cockpit. So when you shoot, like say I'm shooting that person, that's a good guy. Well, dot matrix, let me use you as an example. You're going to see that they're going to shoot forward first, and then these are kind of curious because they'll sort of correct and then they'll correct again. See, they go. It's pretty cool. But remember, these are fixed mount weapons, so you have to adjust for those angles, especially I found for the Overhaul, up or down. So if you're shooting off of center, this might actually be a good example if you did it in position here. If you're shooting kind of off of center or from a height, this one is still pretty straight. Let's say I'm like up here and I'm shooting down. You see, I'm keeping it trained on them. This one's actually a little bit different. But it takes some getting used to, though, there, right there. You know, it takes some getting used to for where these missiles are shooting, that's all. I mean, just like anything, it just takes some getting used to. Because they have to adjust, you know, they're shooting straight out, and then they have to turn and, you know, try to get to where you're aiming. So they just take a little getting used to, just like anything. But that's the Overhaul. So you've got that hummingbird drive. You see that one? It's just sort of hovering, it's just flying around, kind of, you know. It really allows you to be pretty maneuverable in a way. I'd recommend, you know, try to pay attention to where you're going. Because it's very easy to be like flying and shooting and whatever, and you turn over and you're about to land in like a hornet's nest of bad guys. So you don't want that to happen. use your hummingbird strategically. You don't necessarily want to just be hovering the entire time, necessarily. You want to use it, and then you can always remember, you can always deactivate it. Okay, so sometimes, you might want to deactivate it, get into a position, for example, and then, fire away or whatever. But I mean, that's the overhaul. And that concludes our grinder overview. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I hope this was helpful. And basically that just sort of runs through all the different grinders. So, find a grinder that suits your playstyle, suits your personality, and, try to get used to it. I would say I see, a lot of new players opting for the Dredge. It's heavy, it's got the most firepower. It's hard to get a sense of really what the jump jets can do, and the other abilities like ramming or drilling or side strafing, for example, for the other grinders when you're in a Dredge, because you've got a pretty slow jet speed, you've got a slow walking speed, so it's a great grinder in its own right. But take some time to explore the other ones. They all have their pros and cons. To find one that works for you with the weapon loadout, that one works for you and two works for the situation that you're in, and just get the most fun out of the game. Let it reflect who you are, because that really, we've got Gold Rush pilots and drill pilots, and people will mix it up, but when they are in their grinder, the one they really like, it's a force to be reckoned with, and that's something for you to find on your own as well. So again, let me know if you have any questions. Ace Maven signing off. I will see you in Vox.